Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we are opening the hood of the global supply chain to look at this little engine that pretty much dictates whether you get that package you ordered for your anniversary or, well, if you get that generic email saying, sorry, we're delayed.
It's great to be here.
We're talking about SAP Availability Check, known in the industry as ATP. And I have to say, when I first started looking at this, I thought, okay, we check if we have the item. It's simple, you know. How hard can it be?
And that is, I think, the most common assumption out there. Most people, even people in the business, think of inventory as this physical binary. You walk into a warehouse, you see a box on a shelf, and you say, yes, we have stock.
Right. It's there. I can see it.
Exactly. But in the world of SAP, and really in any modern supply chain system, having stock and being able to promise stock are two completely different universes. In fact, they are often at war with each other.
That is the hook that really grabbed me in the research, the in-stock illusion. I think every single salesperson has felt this exact rage. You're standing in the warehouse, you're looking at a whole pallet of widgets, you can touch them.
You can kick the tires on the pallet.
You can. So you run back to your desk, you're excited to key in the order for your best client, and the system just screams at you. Zero quantity confirmed. It honestly feels like the computer is gaslighting you.
It feels that way, absolutely. But the computer is actually protecting you, or at least it's trying to. And that gets us to the core definition we really need to start with today. ATP available to promise is not asking the simple question, what is in the building?
Okay, so it's a smarter question.
It's a much smarter question. It's asking, when can we legally, and I use that word intentionally, when can we legally commit this stock to a specific customer without screwing up a promise we already made to someone else?
So it's a reservation system.
It's a reservation system, it's a time machine, and it's a lawyer all rolled into one. It's all about managing time and commitments, not just, counting boxes.
Right. So it's the bridge between what you have and what you promise.
Precisely. It's the bridge between logistics, what we physically possess, and sales, what we promise to deliver. And if this bridge is broken, if your ATP setup is wrong, you get chaos. Total chaos.
What does that chaos look like?
It looks like broken promises to customers. It looks like late delivery penalties from major retailers. It looks like customers who just stop calling you because you said yes one too many times when you should have said no, but we can get it to you in 2 weeks. Honesty is better than a broken promise.
So our mission today is really to decode this logic engine. Whether you are a functional consultant trying to fix a client's system and you're just pulling your hair out, or you're just someone who wants to understand how a company like Amazon or Walmart manages to predict delivery dates with, scary accuracy.
We've got you covered. We're going to dive deep. And we'll talk about why the transaction MMBE, which is the go-to for stock, is often a liar. That's a controversial one. It usually gets me some hate mail from warehouse managers.
I can imagine.
We'll also talk about the infinite capacity trap, which is every bit as terrifying as it sounds. And we will break down the exact math, step by step, of how SAP decides if you get your delivery next Tuesday or next year.
All right, let's start with the foundation. Segment 1, the architecture of a promise. The source material uses this three-legged stool analogy. I love a good analogy. But usually when people use the stool metaphor, it means if you kick one leg out, you fall flat on your face. Is that the case here?
It is precisely the case. It's all about interdependency. You cannot just turn on availability checking like a light switch. It relies on 3 specific configuration elements, all working in perfect harmony. If one is wrong or missing, the answer you get from the system is not just a little off, it's garbage.
Okay, so what are the 3 legs?
Leg 1 is the checking group, leg 2 is the checking rule, and leg 3 is the scope of check.
All right, let's take those one by one. Leg 1, the checking group. The notes here call this the traffic controller. Where does this live in the system and what is it controlling?
This lives on the material master record. So it's specific to the product you're selling. It's usually on the sales plant tab or the MRP3 tab. And what it does fundamentally is define how the system stores the demand data in the background.
How it stores it.
Yeah, the technical structure. And there is a legendary, almost mythical debate here between 2 settings, O1 and O2. If you go to an SAP conference and you want to start a fight in the hallway, just loudly say, I think O1 is better than O2, and see what happens.
The great debate. So O1 versus O2. What is the fundamental difference? I'm guessing it's not just a number.
Not at all. It really comes down to history versus modernity. So O1 is called daily requirements. Imagine you are selling, I don't know, nuts and bolts, cheap, super high volume. You get thousands of orders for them every single day. Now, Think back to the 90s. Hard drive space was incredibly expensive, and processors were slow. If you wrote a new database line for every single packet of bolts you sold, the system would just grind to a halt. It would crash.
So O1 was basically a compression tool to
Yeah.
save space and processing power.
Exactly. Setting the checking group to O1 tells the system, look, I don't care about the specific order details for this stuff. Just aggregate everything for the day. If you have 50 different orders for bolts on Monday, the database just saves one single record and a table called VBBS that says, Monday, total demand 5,000 units.
Okay, I can see the efficiency gain there, especially back in the day. But what's the downside? What do you lose?
You lose everything. The downside is you're flying completely blind. You lose the link between that demand number and the specific customer order that created it. So if you, as a planner, look at the planning screen, you just see this anonymous blob of demand. You have no idea who it's for.
And if a customer calls up to ask about their order,
You're stuck. If a customer calls and says, hey, did my big order trigger the need for replenishment? You literally can't tell them. All you can see is a lump sum for the day. It's a black box.
which brings us, I assume, to the modern solution. O2, individual requirements.
This is the gold standard today, without question. O2 does the opposite of O1. It creates a separate, unique record in a table called VBBE for every single line item on every single sales order. If you order 10 widgets, that's a record. If I order 5 widgets 5 minutes later, that is a completely separate record.
And the benefit here is pure visibility.
Massive visibility. It's night and day. When you go into the planner's main dashboard, that's transaction MD04, you see the actual sales order numbers right there in the list. Order 123 for customer A needs 10 units on this date. Order 124 for customer B needs 5 units on that date. You can trace the demand from the specific customer all the way to the production line and back again.
The source material has a pretty strong expert insight note on this. It says, and I'm quoting here, in modern S/4HANA environments, always use O2 for finished goods. Is O1 basically dead then?
It should be. For finished goods, yes, it should be dead. The old argument for using O1 was always performance. But with S/4HANA and its in-memory computing, the speed is just incredible. The old performance constraints are gone. There is absolutely no reason to sacrifice that level of transparency anymore.
So if you're a consultant setting up a system today,
If you're a consultant today and you set up a new finished good with checking group O1, you are doing your client a massive disservice. You're handing them a black box in a world that demands a glass box. Unless you are literally selling sand or, gravel where nobody cares about tracking a specific order, you should be using O2.
okay, that's leg 1, the materials group, the how. Leg 2 is the checking rule. The notes say this defines a transactional context. What does context mean inside a database?
It means the system is smart enough to know that availability means something different depending on the business moment you're in. Just think about the difference in mindset between a sales rep and a warehouse manager.
Right. The sales rep is the eternal optimist, and the warehouse manager is the ultimate realist.
Perfectly put. When you're creating a sales order, you're using checking rule A. In that moment, you are the optimist. You are making a promise for the future. You might want the system to be a little flexible, a little more generous in what it considers available.
Like what?
Well, maybe you want to count stock that is currently in quality inspection because you're hoping it will pass by the time you need to ship it next week.
Right.
You want to secure the deal, capture the customer's interest.
Okay, so rule A is for selling.
Right. But then when you are creating a delivery, which uses checking rule B, the game changes. You are now the realist. You are printing a pick list to send a guy with a forklift to a very specific bin in the warehouse. You cannot pick hope. You cannot pick stock that might pass inspection next week. It has to be there physically in unrestricted stock right now.
So the system literally changes the rules of the game depending on whether I'm in a sales screen or a shipping screen.
Exactly. And it's not just sales and deliveries. There are different hard-coded rules for production orders, that's rule PP, or for special backorder processing runs. The checking rule allows you to have, say, a loose policy for taking orders to capture all that valuable demand, but a very strict, rigid policy for actually shipping to ensure you don't send a truck to an empty shelf.
That makes perfect sense. So leg 1 is what we're checking, the material. Leg 2 is the context of when we're checking the transaction. That brings us to the final leg, leg 3, the scope of check.
This is the magic. This is where it all comes together. This is the logic matrix. The transaction code that every consultant knows by heart is OVZ9. If you are an SD or MM consultant, you probably see OVZ9 in your dreams, or more likely, your nightmares.
The notes say this is where the business logic lives. So this is the brain of the operation.
It is the brain. It is the intersection of the first two legs. You take your checking group, let's say O2 for individual requirements, and you combine it with your checking rule, let's say A for a sales order. Inside transaction OBZ9, you define exactly what counts as supply and demand for that specific combination. It's a formula. Group plus rule equals the scope.
Let's do a deep dive into that scope then, because looking at the screenshot of OVZ9 in our prep material, there are about 50 check boxes and options here. This seems to be where all the critical levers are.
It is. This is where the business has to make some really tough decisions. In OVZ9, you are essentially answering two fundamental questions for the system. Question one is, what do we have? Meaning, what types of physical stock should we consider? And question two is, what is coming? Meaning, what types of future supply should we count?
Okay, let's start with what do we have? The most interesting one mentioned here is safety stock. I always thought safety stock was, well, for safety. You keep it for emergencies. It's a buffer. Why on earth is there a checkbox to include it in an availability check?
It's a really deep philosophical quotient for the business. Safety stock is exactly what you said it is. It's a buffer against variability. Maybe your main supplier is always late, or maybe you get a sudden, unexpected spike in demand from a customer. That stock is there to protect you. In OVZ9, you have to decide, do you let the availability check, and by extension, the sales rep, see that safety stock?
So if I uncheck that box, I'm effectively hiding it from the sales team.
Correct. If you uncheck the box for include safety stock in the scoop for sales orders, the system hides it. If you have 100 units total in the warehouse and 20 of those are designated as safety stock, the system will tell the sales rep, we have 80 available to promise.
So it lies to protect the buffer.
It lies for the greater good of the supply chain. Now, imagine the opposite. Imagine you check that box. You tell the system to include safety stock. Now the system looks at the same warehouse and says, we have 100 available. The sales rep, doing their job, goes out and sells all 100.
And now the buffer is completely gone. Your safety net has vanished.
The buffer is gone. So if that unreliable truck from your supplier arrives a day late next week, you have an immediate stock out. You have zero cushion. You start failing on other customer orders.
So why would anyone ever check it? It sounds like a terrible idea for sales orders.
For sales orders, it usually is. But remember the checking rule, the context. Think about production orders. If you are running a multi-million-dollar factory and a critical assembly line is about to stall because it's missing one small part, do you really want the system to say no just because it's hiding 20 units in a safety buffer?
Absolutely not. You'd want to use it.
Of course. A factory stoppage costs thousands, sometimes tens of thousands of dollars a minute. So the common best practice is to hide safety stock from sales, Rule A, but reveal it to production, Rule PP. You protect the buffer from customers, but you allow your own factory to consume it to prevent a catastrophic shutdown.
Wow, that's a crucial nuance. Sales can wait a day. The factory must be fed. What about another stock type mentioned here? Quality inspection stock.
This one I like to call the gambler's checkbox. This represents stock that has physically arrived at your loading dock, but it has not yet been cleared by the quality lab. It's sitting there, maybe with a big yellow hold sticker on it.
So it's in the building, we own it, but we don't know if it's actually good or not.
Precisely. If you check the box in OVZ9 to include this stock in your ATP calculation, you are making a bet. You are betting that the lab will say pass before the customer actually needs the goods shipped.
And if the lab says fail, if they find a problem,
then you have a major problem. You've already confirmed an order to a customer. You've promised them a delivery date based on that stock. But now the stock is blocked, or worse, it has to be scrapped. You have to make that awful phone call to the customer and explain why you can't deliver after all.
Do you have a real-world example of that?
I do. I had a client once, a consumer goods company, who insisted on including quality stock in their check. They wanted their available inventory numbers to look as high as possible for their sales team. They wanted to look inventory rich. They ended up with a 15% backorder rate, purely because their quality lab was consistently slower and stricter than their sales team was optimistic. It was a disaster.
Ouch. So the best practice is probably to exclude it.
Almost always, yes. Exclude it. Don't promise stock that hasn't been approved. Unless you have a very stable, simple product and a very, very fast and reliable lab, it's just not worth the risk.
And the last one in this category, blocked stock. This seems like a no-brainer.
It is. This one is almost always excluded, and for good reason. Blocked stock usually means it's damaged, it's expired, it's been returned by another customer, or it's slated for destruction. You definitely don't want your system accidentally promising that to a new customer.
Okay, so that's the physical stock side of the equation. The What do we have?
Hmm.
Now, let's look at the other side. What is coming? The future supply. This is where we start selling things we don't actually have yet, right?
Yes, and this is really the backbone of any modern supply chain. You don't want to wait until the goods are sitting on your shelf to start selling them. You want to sell them while they're still on the boat from the factory. So you can configure ATP and OVZ9 to look at inbound movements like purchase orders, POs.
So I place a big order with my vendor in China. The PO says it's due to arrive in 2 months. I can start selling against that expected inventory right now.
If you check the Include Purchase Orders box, then yes, absolutely. If a customer calls you today and says, I need a big shipment in 3 months, the system sees that PO arriving in 2 months and says, yep, no problem, we can confirm that. It's looking into the future.
But again, this sounds like it's built on a foundation of trust. You're trusting that vendor completely.
You are trusting the vendor implicitly. It's a huge risk. If that vendor is late, if they short ship you, if the boat gets stuck in the Suez Canal, whatever happens, your promise to your customer is now broken because its foundation was an unreliable PO date.
Is there a safer, more sophisticated way to handle that future supply?
There is. The next level of maturity is to not include raw POs, but instead to only include shipping notifications, which are often called ASNs, or advanced shipping notifications. This is a digital signal sent by the vendor that says, okay, the truck has physically left our dock, the goods are in transit, here is the tracking number.
Ah, so that's a much more concrete event.
Much more concrete. Including ASNs is far safer than including raw POs because the goods are physically moving. The risk of something going wrong is significantly lower.
And for companies that aren't buying and selling but are making their own stuff, make-to-stock environments.
For them, it's absolutely crucial that they include production orders. You have to be able to count the goods that are currently being assembled on your own factory floor as future supply. If a product is halfway down the assembly line today, it's pretty safe to promise it for delivery next week.
So when you look at that whole OVZ9 screen, it's really not just an IT configuration screen. It's a summary of your company's risk appetite.
That is the perfect way to put it. It shouldn't be configured in a vacuum by an IT person. Setting up OVZ9 should be a business strategy meeting. You need sales, logistics, and production in a room together deciding, how much risk are we willing to take to get the sale? Do we promise only what we have, or do we promise what we hope to get?
Now, speaking of risk and hope, we absolutely need to talk about segment 3. The source material calls this simply the trap. It is all about replenishment lead time, or RLT, and the notes say this is the single most misunderstood concept in the whole of SAP-ATP.
It absolutely is. I have seen very experienced, very senior consultants get this backwards. I've seen it completely ruin product launches and create millions of dollars in fake back orders. It is dangerous if you don't understand it.
And it all centers on one little checkbox in OVZ9, which is confusingly labeled check without RLT.
Yes, a classic SAP double negative, just to make it a little harder.
Yeah.
Check without RLT.
Here, let's untangle this very carefully.
Okay, stick with me here. Let's simplify the scenario. Imagine you have zero stock of a product, zero, and you have zero POs, zero production orders. Nothing is coming in. The cupboard is completely bare.
Got it. Zero supply.
Now, if you tick the box that says check without RLT, you are telling the system to be a realist. The system looks for stock, sees nothing. It looks for future receipts, sees nothing. So it does the logical thing. It says, no, the confirmed quantity is zero. End of story.
That seems correct. Logical. We have nothing, so we promise nothing.
It's the honest answer. It's the safe answer. But
Yeah.
this is the trap. If you leave that box unchecked, which means you are telling the system to check with RLT, the entire logic of the system changes completely.
How so?
The system starts the same way. It looks for stock, finds none. But then, instead of giving up, it switches its logic. It says, well, the material master record says the total replenishment lead time for this product is 10 days, so I'll just assume we can make more or buy more.
It just assumes you can produce it on demand.
Yes. It takes today's date, it adds the 10 days of lead time from the material master, and it confirms the customer's order for that future date.
Wait, regardless of how much the customer ordered.
That is the infinite capacity trap.
Okay, give me the absolute nightmare scenario here.
All right. Imagine a customer calls and wants to order 1 million units of your product. You have zero in stock. Your factory is a small operation. You can maybe, on a good day, produce 1,000 units. But your replenishment lead time is set to 10 days in the system.
I have a bad feeling about this.
You should. If RLT is active, The system does not look at your factory's capacity. It is critical to understand that ATP is not a capacity planning tool. It is a simple lead time tool. It just does the simple math. Today plus 10 days. So it will happily confirm the full order for 1 million units for delivery in 10 days.
Even though it would actually take you, what, 3 years to make that many?
Exactly. It makes a promise that is physically impossible to keep.
That is genuinely terrifying from a business perspective.
It creates absolute, unmitigated chaos. The sales rep is thrilled. I just closed a 1 million unit deal. The customer is happy. Great, I'm getting them in 10 days. Then the production planner comes in the next morning, sees the new demand for 1 million units in MDO4, and has an actual heart attack.
So why does this setting even exist? If it's so dangerous, why would anyone ever use it? When should we use RLT?
It does have its place. It's not pure evil. If you are a manufacturer with very flexible capacity, maybe you can easily add shifts, you can pay overtime, you can even outsource to a third-party manufacturer on short notice, then you might use check with RLT. Because it gives the customer a smooth, standard answer. Instead of this system saying no one day and yes the next, it just says, we are out right now, but we can make it for you in roughly 10 days. It smooths over the little gaps in your production schedule.
But what if you're not a manufacturer? What if you're a distributor?
Now that's the key distinction. If you are a distributor, a company that just buys and sells trading goods, where your supply is fundamentally constrained by what your vendors can give you, you should almost always check without RLT. If you don't have it, and you don't have a PO for it, you need to say you don't have it. Don't lie.
Because you can't just magically create more iPhones.
You can't just spin up a new factory to make iPhones if Apple hasn't shipped them to you. Your lead time is whatever Apple's lead time is. It's not some magic number in your material master. So for trading goods, RLT is incredibly dangerous.
So to simplify it, check without RLT is basically the don't lie button.
That's a great way to put it. It's the honesty button.
Okay, let's move from the if to the when. We need to talk about the timeline. Segment 4, we've talked a lot about quantity, but the P in ATP is about the promise. And a promise usually implies a specific date. How does SAP calculate the exact day that it shows the customer?
This brings us to a beautiful little piece of logic called backward and forward scheduling. It's a two-step dance that happens in milliseconds every time you enter an order.
Let's start with step 1, backward scheduling. Walk us through the math.
So the system always starts with the customer's wish. That's the requested delivery date, RDD. Let's say your customer wants the goods to arrive for their big store opening on the 25th of the month.
Okay, the 25th is the target.
The 25th is the target. So SAP takes that date and starts calculating backward in time. First, it subtracts the transit time. Let's say the truck takes 2 days to get from your warehouse to their store. So 25 minus 2, we are now at the 23rd. That's the ship date.
Makes sense.
Then it subtracts the loading time. How long does it take your crew to load the truck? Let's say 1 day for a big order. So 23 minus 1, we are at the 22nd. Then it subtracts the pick-pack time. How long to find the goods, wrap them, and get them to the shipping dock? Let's say 1 more day. So 22 minus 1, we land on the 21st.
And that date, the 21st, is the really critical one, isn't it?
Yes. That is the material availability date, or MAD. This is the date that the stock must be sitting on the shipping dock, fully packed, labeled, and ready to be loaded. The system performs the actual availability check, the logic we just discussed, on that specific date, the 21st.
So it's not checking for today, it's checking for that future date. It asks, will we have stock on the 21st?
Correct. And if the answer is yes, great. The order is confirmed for the customer's requested date of the 25th. Everyone is happy. Backward scheduling was the success. It was the ideal path.
Well, what if the answer is no? What if we look at our plan for the 21st and we simply don't have enough stock?
Then backward scheduling has failed. We cannot meet the customer's wish. So the system immediately and automatically switches to step 2, forward scheduling. This is the system's reality check.
Okay, how does that work? Is it the reverse?
It is exactly the reverse. The system now ignores the customer's requested date and instead looks forward from today. It asks a new question. Okay, when will we have enough stock? Maybe a big purchase order is scheduled to arrive on the 28th. Or maybe if we're using RLT, it calculates today plus lead time and comes up with the 28th.
So the new material availability date becomes the 28th.
Right. The 28th is the earliest we can have the goods ready. So now we add the time back in. We start at the 28th. We add 1 day for pick pack, so that's the 29th. We add 1 day for loading, that's the 30th. We add 2 days for transit. The result is the new confirmed delivery date, which would be the 2nd of the next month.
And that's what the system shows the user.
That's what it shows. It tells the sales rep, You want it on the 25th, but the earliest we can realistically get it to you is the 2nd of next month. Backward scheduling is trying to be the hero and say yes. Forward scheduling is being the honest messenger and telling the truth.
And it seems like getting all those little times right, the transit loading, picking times, is absolutely critical.
It's everything. If you have 0 days set for picking in your master data, but in reality it takes your overworked warehouse crew 2 full days to find the stuff and pack it, you are going to be shipping late on every single order. Garbage in, garbage out. The Promise Engine runs on good data.
We have covered the core logic, the absolute bedrock of ATP. Now I want to shift gears a little. The world of SAP is evolving fast. We are moving from the classic ECC systems to the new S/4HANA platform. Segment 5 here is all about advanced controls and the S/4HANA evolution. There's some acronyms here that seem vital. Let's start with one called TOR.
Transfer of requirements. Now, this isn't exclusively an S/4HANA concept. It's been around forever. But it's the absolute heartbeat of the entire planning system. The source notes have a great line. You can have TOR without ATP, but you usually don't have ATP without TOR.
That sounds a bit like a riddle. Break that down for us.
It's about cause and effect. Think of it this way. ATP is the check. It's a passive query. TOR is the action. It's the active demand signal. When you create a sales order, if TOR is active, the system takes that requirement, say 100 widgets, and passes that demand over to the manufacturing or purchasing side of the house, to MRP, which is Material Requirements Planning.
So it's telling the rest of the business, hey, we just sold some stuff, you need to replenish it.
Exactly. It's the signal that keeps the whole cycle going. Now think about what happens if I turn off TOR. Sales is still taking orders. They're still running ATP checks. They're consuming the inventory. But the signal to replenish is broken. Nobody's telling the factory to make more or the purchasing team to buy more.
The shelf just slowly goes empty and never gets refilled.
The loop is broken, you sell the last widget, the shelf is empty, and no replenishment signal was ever sent. So the next time you try to run an ATP check, of course it fails. There's no stock and there's no stock coming in. So Terra is absolutely essential for keeping the supply chain ecosystem alive.
Got it. Okay, now let's talk about the very common situation where we just don't have enough stuff to go around. We're in a shortage. The notes here mention a very powerful tool called product allocation, or PAL.
This is a huge topic right now, maybe one of the most important in supply chain management. Shortages are the new normal. Now, the standard ATP logic we've been discussing is, at its heart, first come, first served.
Which sounds fair, right? That's how the deli counter works. You take a number.
It sounds fair on the surface, but in business, it can be a strategic disaster. Imagine this scenario. You have a VIP customer, your biggest account, maybe a Walmart or an Amazon, who buys 80% of your stock every month. But their automated procurement system always runs on Friday mornings at 9 a.m. Then you have a tiny little distributor, let's call them Bob's Shack, who buys a few small items every week. But Bob just happens to place his order on Thursday afternoon with first come, first served. What happens?
Bob takes the stock. He cleans you out before Walmart even has a chance.
Bob cleans you out. And when your VIP customer, the one who keeps you in business, calls on Friday, you have to tell them, sorry, we're out of stock. That is incredibly bad business. You might lose that VIP account over something so simple.
So product allocation fixes this. How?
It completely changes the game. Piala allows you to assign quotas. Think of them as virtual buckets of quantity to specific customers or regions or sales channels. You predefine who gets what.
So Walmart gets its own protected bucket of inventory.
Exactly. You might allocate 8,000 units to the VIP's bucket and 200 units to the small distributor's bucket. So even if Bob orders early on Thursday, he can only take from his small 200-unit bucket. He cannot touch the 8,000 units reserved for Walmart.
So ATP now has to check two things.
It does. When an order comes in, ATP first checks. 1, is there enough physical stock in the warehouse? And then it checks. 2, does this customer have any quota left in their allocation bucket for this month? The customer has to pass both checks.
And the source notes mention a hard stop here, which sounds serious.
It is a hard stop. This is the key. Even if you have 10,000 units physically sitting in the warehouse, staring you in the face, if the customer's allocation quota for the month is 0, ATP will confirm 0. Full stop. It forces you to ration your scarce stock according to your business strategy, not just according to who clicked submit first.
That sounds powerful. And that leads us logically to the next topic, backorder processing, or BOP. This is what happens when we mess up, or when scarce stock finally arrives, right? Who gets it?
It's all about managing the queue of disappointed customers. You have a pile of back orders, people who are all waiting for stock. Then a truck finally arrives with a fresh batch of goods. Who gets it first? In the old days, in the classic SAP system, we used a process called classic rescheduling. The transaction was VV2, and it was pretty basic. It just sorted everyone by priority and date.
But the notes warn that this process is destructive.
Hmm.
Why destructive? That's a strong word.
It's destructive to customer relationships because what VV2 does is it recalculates everything from scratch every time you run it. It might take stock away from a low-priority customer who already had a confirmed delivery date and give it to a new high-priority customer who just entered an order into the system 5 minutes ago.
Oh, wow. So you could have a confirmation, and then the system can just take it away from you.
It can. Imagine you are that low-priority customer. You have a confirmation for this Friday. You've planned for it. Then on Thursday night, the company runs VV2. It steals your stock, gives it to a VIP, and you get an automated email saying, "So sorry, your delivery date has just been pushed back by 3 weeks."
That is a fantastic way to enrage your customers.
It's brutal. It causes so much frustration. But this is one of the biggest areas of improvement in S/4HANA with what's called Advanced ATP, or AATP. This is the cool new stuff. S/4HANA gets rid of that simple sorting and introduces BOP segments. Instead of just a priority list, we have explicit strategies.
And the notes list them out. It's win, gain, redistribute, fill, and lose. This sounds less like logistics and a lot more like game theory.
It is corporate game theory baked right into the software. It's fascinating. Win is for your absolute top-tier VIPs. The system is told to ensure they always get confirmed fully no matter what. If it has to steal stock from someone else to do it, it will. Gain is for your next tier of high-priority customers. The system will try to improve their confirmation dates if new stock becomes available, but it won't actively steal from others to do it. Redistribute is for the middle group. It allows the system to shuffle stock around a bit, maybe taking a little from a huge order to fully satisfy a small order to optimize the overall service level for the whole group. Fill is an interesting one. It basically says to the system, give this group whatever stock is left over, but do not steal from anyone else to do it. They are scavengers. And then there's lose.
Lose. That just sounds harsh. Who gets put in the lose category?
It is harsh, but it's honest. This is for your lowest priority customers or maybe internal stock transfers. The system is explicitly told, if you need stock to satisfy a winner, your first source of that stock is the losers. If you are in the lose segment, your confirmation date is basically worthless until everyone else in the chain is satisfied.
That is ruthless efficiency. It's a complete shift from first come, first served to best customer served first.
It's algorithmic rationing, plain and simple. And S/4HANA adds another layer. In the old system, if your primary warehouse, Plant A, was out of stock, the order just failed. Back order.
Right.
In S/4HANA with 8 ATP, if Plant A is out, the system can be configured to automatically check Plant B or Plant C on the other side of the country. It can find the stock anywhere in your network and switch the plant on the sales order instantly to secure the confirmation for the customer. It's much, much smarter.
We have covered the architecture, the deep logic, and the high-level strategy. This is amazing. Now, let's get really practical for the people listening. Segment 6 is the consultant's troubleshooting toolkit. This is for the listener who is staring at a screen right now, frustrated, wondering why the system is behaving the way it is.
Yes, the why is the system doing this to me section.
Let's hit the most common one first. Scenario 1. MMBE says I have stock, but ATP confirms 0.
This is, without a doubt, the #1 support ticket a functional consultant gets. The user, usually someone in sales or customer service, looks at transaction MMBE, that's the stock overview screen. It shows the physical inventory. And it says right there in black and white, 100 units on hand. But when they create the sales order, the system says 0 confirmed.
And the user screams.
The user screams, the system is broken. I can see the stock. It's right there.
Why does this happen so often?
It happens because MMBE is a static, physical view. It only answers the question, what is physically in the building right now? It does not show what has already been promised to other people. Those 100 units might be physically sitting there, but they're already reserved for 10 other sales orders that came in an hour before yours. They are spoken for.
So what transaction should people be using instead?
CO9, CO09, the availability overview. If you take nothing else away from this deep dive today, please take this. Trust CO9, not MMBE.
Why is CO9 the source of truth?
Because CO9 shows the full picture. It shows the physical stock, yes, but then it also shows all the demands against that stock, all the other sales orders and reservations. It calculates the cumulative ATP quantity, which is the running total of what's actually available to promise over time. If MMBE says 100, but CO9 says 0, it means you have stock, but it's all spoken for. CO9 shows you the promise, not just the pile.
Okay, check CO9. Got it. Let's do scenario 2. The opposite problem. The system confirmed the order, but we actually have no stock.
This is usually the ghost of the RLT trap we talked about earlier. The first thing I'd check is the confirmed date on the sales order. Is that date exactly today's date plus the replenishment lead time from the material master?
So if you ordered today, the 9th, and the lead time is 10 days, and the confirmation is for the 19th.
Bingo. Your system almost certainly assumed infinite capacity because you are checking with RLT turned on. It didn't find any stock, so it just invented a future supply based on that lead time. The confirmation is a fantasy.
Was another reason this could happen.
The other common culprit is promising against unreliable future supply. Did you configure your scope of check to include purchase orders? Maybe you promised against a PO that the vendor has now pushed back by a month. The system confirmed it last week when the PO was still due to arrive today. Now, the vendor updated the PO date, but the confirmation on your sales order doesn't automatically change.
So the sales order still holds the old optimistic promise.
Exactly. The confirmation stays on that sales order until you run a rescheduling job, like a BOP run, to reevaluate it and fix it. The system doesn't automatically go back and fix old sales orders just because a PO changed. That's a separate process.
Okay, last one. Scenario 3. No check happened at all. The ATP screen just didn't pop up, no confirmation, no date, just nothing.
This is almost always a simple missing piece of master data or configuration. 9 times out of 10, you should check the requirement type on the procurement tab of the sales order line item. This little code is what links the sales document to the entire back-end planning world.
And if it's missing?
If that field is empty or if it has the wrong value, the ATP logic never gets the signal to trigger. It's like trying to start a car that has no battery. The engine is there, the parts are all there, but there is no spark to initiate the calculation. It's a simple but common mistake.
This has been a massive, incredibly detailed download of information. Let's try to wrap up with a summary of the key takeaways in our outro.
Sure, let's boil it all down. First, and most importantly, ATP is not a stock query. It is a logic engine for making and keeping promises.
Second, the three-legged stool.
Yes. The checking group on the material, the checking rule for the transaction, and the scope of check in OVZ9. They all must be aligned. If one is wrong, the entire check fails or gives you bad information.
Third, the big trap.
Beware the RLT trap. Don't let your system promise infinite capacity unless you actually have a magical factory that can back it up. For most businesses, especially distributors, you should be checking without RLT.
And finally, the golden rule of troubleshooting.
Trust COO9, not MMBE. MMBE shows you the warehouse. COO9 shows you the truth of your commitments.
The source material leaves us with a final, really provocative thought to end on. We've talked about the mechanics, but there's a bigger shift happening. We are moving from a world of simple availability, is it there, to a world of what the notes call algorithmic rationing.
That is the shift. That's the S/4HANA story. We are seeing it everywhere, driven by the constant supply chain shortages we live with now. Businesses are moving away from the simple, democratic, first-come, first-served model.
Because it's not strategic.
It's not strategic at all. They are now using these powerful new tools, like S/4HANA's win-lose strategies and BOP, to actively pick and choose who gets the scarce product and who has to wait.
It fundamentally changes the relationship between a business and its customers. It's not just about having the money to buy something. It's about being important enough to be classified as a winner in your supplier's algorithm.
It really does. It makes the supply chain intensely political and strategic rather than just transactional. If your business is classified as a loser in your key supplier's algorithm, you might never see stock, even if you know their warehouse is full. It's a whole new world of haves and have-nots.
Something to chew on, for sure. Before you go promise anything to your customers today, maybe go take a look at your company's OVZ9 settings.
And then check CO9. Always check CO09.
Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive. We'll catch you on the next one.
Goodbye, everyone.